Class is in session. This is the Draft Seminar Rookie Profile Series hosted by Matt Hicks, the FF Educator, and I am joined, as always, by John Laub, the Gridiron Scholar. John, this is the Tyler Allgeier episode. I know this is going to be a very popular one because Allgeier is one of the more decisive, or I should say divisive, prospects here in the 2022 rookie draft class. So I'm excited to jump into him. But before we do, want to make sure all of our listeners and viewers know that the entire Draft Seminar Rookie Series here can be found on the Rookie Big Board podcast channel, the Rookie Big Board YouTube channel if you prefer the video, and on the NFL Draft Bible Network podcast channel as well. You can find more of John's work at footballdiehards.com, and you can get all of my rookie rankings and profiles at patreon.com/theFFeducator. John, Tyler Allgeier, I know as a college football fan, this is somebody that you have enjoyed watching over the last couple of years. But let's talk a little bit about how his career may translate into NFL and fantasy football production.
He jumped on my radar last year when I was watching BYU and clearly flashed when I was studying Zach Wilson in more detail. And he was even better in 2021 than he was in 2020, Matt. And right now, I have him in my top 10 prospects. However, this week, the scouting combine, we really don't know how athletic this young man is. And it's fascinating because there are wild opinions, Matt. Some people think he's very athletic and he's going to test out extremely well at his size. And then there's other people who sit there and go, you know, we're all going to be disappointed in the BYU running back when we see the scores. I'm very open-minded. I'm looking to see what he does. And until then, my ranking is in the top 10 based on model and film assessment. So who is this young man? First, Matt, 5'11", 220 pounds. You do not see many running backs at a group of five program / independent. You know, BYU's in that middle ground right now as an independent, but he's a former linebacker with a lot of special teams in his background. So he's a versatile player. He's also a walk-on at BYU, and he needed to work at Walmart to pay his tuition at one point. So this young man has really earned his draft capital and his place in the 2022 class of rookie running backs. But how good was he last year, Matt? He rushed for over 1,600 yards and 23 touchdowns. He was a semifinalist for the Doak Walker Award and first team All-Independent. Now, what makes that so amazing in my book? They lost Zach Wilson, and BYU lost a lot of offensive linemen. So he came back and dominated as the focal point of this offense. The year before, he was first team All-Independent and honorable mention All-American with 1,130 rushing yards and 13 touchdowns. And here's some crazy stats that I love, Matt. In 2019, he played 13 games at linebacker, running back, and special teams. He had 26 tackles, half a sack, 1 forced fumble, 17 carries for 119 yards, 3 catches for 67, and a touchdown. What he reminds me of, remember the Patriots at the turn of the 21st century? Those early Patriot teams, 2001 to 2005. They love those versatile players. I think a team is going to love Allgeier's versatility and what he can do in a training camp and how he can help you on special teams. Part of the narrative, I think, is, again, we go back to high school. He was a 2-star prospect. Yet, Matt, he had over 5,000 rushing yards and 56 touchdowns. What does your film study say about Tyler Allgeier, Matt?
Yeah, John, it's really interesting here. I give him a tape score of 79.1. This is somebody, to be completely honest, after his 2020 tape doing summer scouting, I was nowhere near consensus on him. I was much lower on him. And I think it's one of the reasons it's really important we talk about progression over time, right? When I flipped on his 2021 tape, there was a lot more excitement for me, and he jumped up a pretty high amount in the rookie big board
He's
rankings.
good.
When it comes with Allgeier, you have to start with his play strength. He has fantastic contact balance, and I think that's really important. It's one thing to be strong, John, but to have that physical play strength and that comes through as contact balance, I think is really impressive here. He's aggressive. He's going to fight forward through the end of plays. And if you do not fully wrap him, you are not going to bring him down. He's explosive off the line of scrimmage. He's got good pop off the line of scrimmage, but even more so, it's not necessarily that burst off the line of scrimmage for me. It's the explosiveness to hit the second gear at that second level of the field. He sees gaps, he hits gaps, he bursts through them at times there for BYU. And you mentioned the fact that he did have that transition with the offensive line. In terms of his vision, at times it looks good. He can run off tackle well, but running in between the tackles at times, there's question marks for me as to how well he sees the field. Maybe a little bit too hesitant to actually attack his gaps when he sees them. So again, a little bit of hesitancy there. I would consider his vision to be a negative because that is a very important category for me. So it's something I want to see scored high. And then athleticism, he can shake a linebacker, and he has good footwork at times, but he's not going to be an elusive back in the NFL, right? He's not going to shake guys in the open field. He's going to be good at what he's good at, right? And there's certainly a lot that Allgeier is good at. Let's dig a little bit more into the numbers.
Matt, you've mentioned this before. Matt and I do no pre-talk or conversation. My scholar's grade based on film and statistics in my model, I gave him a 79. You gave him a 79.1. I mean, literally, we were 0.1 difference. So Matt and I, we study these players, and there's a lot of times that we come to agreement, and we differ at times, but on this player, we are lock, stock, in barrel on him. Look at the model. 2,904 rushing yards for a walk-on. Unbelievably impressive. 6.4 yards per carry. I mentioned his versatility. Matt, 46 career receptions. He can contribute on special teams. That gets you on an NFL squad. And Matt, if he's the third back and he's playing special teams, there's an opportunity for this young man if there's injuries, and we know how devastating injuries are to running backs. So this young man, I do believe he will have an opportunity down the road. I mentioned him, 5'11", 220. I know there's a coaching staff, Matt, who's going to love his ability to grind it between the tackles. I agree with you. He doesn't have a lot of wiggle. It's not there on film. But there is a role in the NFL for the players who have decent vision between the hash marks and are willing to take a hit. Tyler Allgeier can be your, third back with that specialty. And Matt, you mentioned he was so much better in 2021. Look at that. Yards from scrimmage, 1,805. And if you watch the 220 film and the 221, he was a much better player in 2021. But Matt, look at the scrimmage yards dominator, 31%. What I see on him, he's aggressive, he's powerful, he packs a punch, and his versatility will get him on an NFL roster. What your fantasy footballers know, Matt, about Tyler Allgeier?
Yeah, absolutely, John. And you referenced this here, and I'm actually going to have a combine episode out on the Rookie Big Board, kind of previewing the guys who are going to have the biggest impact. So that'll be on the Rookie Big Board YouTube and podcast channel. But it's Allgeier. I'm going to give a little sneak peek here. This is one of the top guys that this combine is so important for him, because right now I have him as a day 2 late projection. That's what I'm hearing. Is that some NFL teams have him as running back 4 or 5. There might even be an NFL team that has him as running back 3. But if he goes to the combine, John, and runs a bad 40, doesn't look explosive there in the cone drills or in the jump drills, he could see his stock tank, right? So is Allgeier going to follow in this line of, the A.J. Dillon or Ramondre Stevenson, big, powerful guys that have been impactful? It's going to start at the combine, right? It's going to start there to see if NFL teams feel comfortable drafting him with a top 102 pick. If not, he's going to fall to rounds 4 or 5, right? And if that does, that's not the end of the world. We know rookie running back can be successful coming out of that spot, right? And so it's going to be a matter of whether Allgeier can test well. In terms of his fantasy football tier here, I'm going to have him in here as the flex filler. And so I think he's going to fall in that running back, 36, 30 to 40 range here for fantasy football. Early second round rookie pick. That's the consensus I'm seeing. And with John, my exposure is going to be low on him at that price. I might be willing to buy in if he comes in with high NFL draft capital. John, that is the Tyler Allgeier episode. You're going to want to make sure you're subscribed, whether you're viewing or listening to the entire Draft Seminar Profiles series. We have a lot more prospects to go. And as always, we appreciate you.